Does your putting suck? Are you tired of costly three putts that are ruining your round? If so, today's episode with Dr. Joseph Parent will transform the way you putt. Dr. Joseph Parent is the author of Zen Golf, not to mention the book Zen Putting. Zen Golf has sold over 1 million copies worldwide, making him one of the best-selling, if not the best-selling golf author ever. This is his second time on Wicked Smart Golf Podcast, and today we really dial in on the putting. So if you're someone that really feels like putting is holding you back, this is the interview for you. All right, Dr. Parent, thanks so much for being a guest again here on Wicked Smart Golf.
My pleasure. Great to see you, Michael.
It was a ton of fun the first time we talked earlier in the year, and as I mentioned in the email, the brand has grown a lot, and everyone loved your episode. So I wanted to have you back because one of the biggest areas where my audience struggles, and my audience and pretty much every golfer, is the putting side of things. So excited to hopefully help out with the mental / putting today and give people a little bit more clarity. Why do you feel like putting is just so hard compared to the rest of the game, which is already pretty challenging?
Well, it's ironic because it's really the simplest stroke that we have. We're moving this little flat thing back and forth a few inches, at most a foot back and forth, right? As opposed to a big, full golf swing and trying to send the ball hundreds of yards. So I think that it really comes down to feeling like, if I hit my drive and it doesn't go in the fairway, I still have a chance to recover. All right, and if I hit my second shot and I don't hit the green, I still have a chance to recover. And if I have a long putt and I roll it 4 feet by, I still have a chance to recover. But you can't recover from a missed 4 foot. You don't feel like you can recover from a missed 4 foot putt. So the closer you get to the hole, the more pressure you feel. And that pressure is really what makes it so difficult. And the pressure is you think your job is to get the ball in the hole. Is that your job in putting?
No, your job is to stick to the process.
Yeah. Now, you know that because I've talked to you about that. But a lot of people, if I do a clinic, I'll give you an example. Let's pretend we're at a clinic. Okay, and all of your listeners, you can pretend you're in the audience at the clinic. And I ask everybody, I'm asking you, what's your job in putting? And most everybody says, get the ball in the hole. And I said, oh, okay, now I understand. I'll pretend I'm a new golfer. And I set the ball about 4 feet from the hole. And I say, boy, I really want to get this in. I got to make sure I get this in the hole. And I reach down, and I pick it up, carry it over, and place it and I put it in the hole. And I said, can I do that? And everybody goes, no. I said, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Okay, because I thought my job was to put the ball in the hole. How about this? And I put the ball 4 feet away, and I put the putter right behind the ball, and then I shovel it gradually until I put it in the hole. And I said, can I do that? And they said, no, you can't do that. I said, okay, you're making me a little crazy because you told me my job was to put the ball in the hole, but now you're telling me I'm not allowed to put the ball in the hole. There we have it. That's why putting's so hard, because people think that their job is to put the ball in the hole, and you're not allowed to. What are you allowed to do? Get it started rolling. So if you shift your perspective of what your job is, everything changes. Everything changes. So what I do is I have people change the definition of making a putt. That's why I wrote a book, How to Make Every Putt. The definition of making a putt is, I love the way it left the putter. Which usually has to do with the three components to that are, it has a nice end-over-end roll. If you use a line on your ball, it stays sharp, doesn't wobble. It started on the line you intended it to start on, which is where you aimed the putter, hopefully, and you didn't push or pull your putt. And you kind of liked the pace it left at. You said, yep, that's about how hard I wanted to hit it. That's the speed I wanted it to go when it leaves the putter. Then you like the way it left, you made your putt. I like to tell golfers for every shot that you play, your main goal is to love the way it leaves. Not how it's going to turn out. If you love the way it leaves, you got a much better chance of it turning out well. Okay, so that's the definition of making a putt. If it goes in, that's called holing the putt. So you probably won't hole every putt, but you can make every putt.
It's so funny you brought that up. That was one of the biggest points I wanted to talk about today because as I mentioned when I reached out, I had a tough summer putting, and I had to go back to Zen Putting, and it was there to help me. And your knowledge and tips gave me a little bit more confidence, and got a new putter fitting, started to kind of build it back a little bit. And I realized that the made versus hold mentality is something that everyone can just fall in love with. And I think that subtle shift just makes such a big difference because you're just not going to make a lot of putts outside of 8 feet. It just statistically isn't going to happen, right? So it's like if you can just say,
hang on. You meant you're not going to hole a lot of putts.
Correct. Thank you. And so that it just gives you something to focus on, right? Because like you said, you're not going to hole a lot of putts outside 8 feet, but you can make a lot of putts by focusing on that. And so, I even did an episode about that like 2-3 months ago because I was like, this principle from Zen Putting will change the way you look at putting, because I think so many of us just try to, make everything right. And it's like, if we don't, then or if we don't hold it, then we're just so disappointed. And I feel like that's obviously not a great way to go about it. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
You're not going to build your confidence. You want your confidence to be based on execution because it's not a perfect surface. And you could roll, I think Peltz did a study. He got a ramp on a country club green with about a foot of break, and he rolled 10 balls down that ramp. Only 7 went in. It's a ramp. It's a perfect roll. But only 7 out of the 10 went in, and that's on a perfect roll from a ramp. So it's not a perfect surface. Golf balls are not perfect spheres. And so we want our confidence based on our ability to execute, not whether the ball goes in the hole or not.
Yeah, I think that if that subtle mindset shift just makes such a big difference in how you perceive your putts. And when I was kind of, thinking about this episode and re-listening to Zen Putting and just thinking about my own kind of ups and downs this year, I really figured with putting, it's 3 parts, right? It's the mental side of things, it is the green reading side, and then the actual routine part of it. Obviously, mechanics play a role, but you and I both know it's more more mental than mechanical a lot of times. So I wanted to get your take on the mental side first before getting into reading greens and some of the impacts of routines. What do you think are some of the biggest mental mistakes most golfers make on the putting green?
The main mental mistake is feeling like they need to get it in the hole, and that interferes with making a free stroke. The other mental mistake is, this actually comes from a perceptual thing. Okay, our eyes are set up ideally to be at the same level looking at something, not with our head tilted, and that each eye is the same distance from what we're looking at, like a triangle, not one closer than the other, right? And when we get over the golf ball, and our our head is tilted, so one eye's higher than the other, one eye's closer to the hole than the other, and it's going to look different than when you see it looking down the line from behind. That's why you see a lot of the pros now are setting up to the ball and looking that way, then getting behind, then setting up again, and trying to find that balance in between the two. If you have to choose, you should go with how it looks from behind, because that's how your eyes are built to see things. But when you get over the ball, you also have the feeling of your weight and how your body is on the surface. So it does contribute to it. The getting stuck in between and not being sure, that's one of the mental mistakes. They say, well, I played for this much break, but it looks like more. And then you decide, should I help it out there? Should I just trust what I saw? And you're not really sure. And then you make a very hesitant stroke.
Those are three mistakes I know I've made, and I know a lot of listeners can relate to. One thing too, with just like the whole aspect of trying not necessarily to actually hole every putt. I mean, your job, like you said, is to just focus on what you can control. It sounds good in theory, right? But I still get so many people that are like, I just want to make this putt though. I finally want to make that birdie, or I want to win this match. Like, how do you recommend quieting the mind when you're on the green? Because like you said, there's really no time to make it up, like a drive that may not be great, or you might miss the green. There's still some time. So this is obviously the time to shine when you're on the flat part here and you're worried about the green. So what can you do to quiet your mind to allow your talent to come through?
First things first, work on your language, change making and holding. And say, I really want to make this putt. Oh, that means I really want to like the way I get it started. Okay, so that immediately takes the pressure off of whether it's going to go in or not. Okay, then the next thing is breathing, working with your breathing and getting yourself settled, right? Have you ever heard the expression down tight?
Mm-mm.
It's because it doesn't exist. Nobody's ever down tight. They're uptight, right? So if you're all uptight, all your energy is in your upper body and your hands, and you flip at it, and all that tension comes in. So you need to breathe and let the tension flow down. So one of the things that you can do is, as you set up over a putt, just imagine that the tension is flowing down and out through your arms, down and out, and softness is filling your arms and filling your body. And then you make a stroke rather than hitting at the ball. Because if people don't have that trust and that softness, you'll find that your grip changes as you stroke it, and you tighten as you come into impact. And that can make you actually decel by tightening as you come into impact. So instead, make your practice swings and feel that softness, and let the putter go. And what I recommend in practice swings is not just waving the putter back and forth. You're not practicing. You're loosening up. That's okay. If you want to do it as loosening up, that's fine. But if you're going to make a practice swing, putt through, hold the finish, and say, that's what I want my stroke to feel like. Through, hold the finish. Through, hold the finish. And then you get up to the ball, through, hold the finish.
Yeah, I think that it just is so, like you said, so key to get rid of that tension and that uptight, because that's where if you're stressed out, your mind is not able to perform like you would during a casual round or when you're just going through your normal practice putting routine. And so it's like, if you can just find different ways to clear that, which obviously the next two parts of green reading and putting will do. Oh, sorry, you look like you had something you wanted to say there.
Yeah, the breathing out, exhaling has to do with relaxing. Inhaling has to do with energizing. Now you have to inhale first, but focus on the exhalation. Breathe it out. Let yourself settle down. Breathe it out. Breathe it down. Settle down. Breathe it down. Settle down. So you say that to yourself a couple of times, and then you'll be ready to putt. That's the way to quiet the mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, and I feel like the more quiet the mind is, the more you can kind of access that zone. I know you had a little, chapter, I think, in that book or one of your other putting books, talking about how you're kind of always in the zone. You just have to find ways to access it.
Yes, that's right.
I think that if guys can just take a little bit more relaxation and not so much stress and trying to hole every putt, like you said, I think that's key. But I think the second part is green reading, right? Like I've realized how much this year I didn't feel like I was really as committed over a lot of putts. And then it has a lot of doubt and indecision, like you just talked about, when you see it one thing from behind it and then you're over it and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I have enough break. Now we're just consciously thinking right over the golf ball, and it's really not ideal. So I wanted to get your take on, what does a good green reading routine look like?
Okay. Well, Jack Nicklaus said he started reading the green from 50 yards out. So you start with the biggest perspective that you can. I tell people, if it's a course you haven't played before, go in the pro shop and ask, is there something about the geography of this golf course that makes most of the greens run in a particular direction? He said, well, yeah, we're only 10 miles away from the ocean, so everything flows to the west. Or if you're in Florida, everything flows to the east. Or if you're on the west coast of Florida, everything flows towards the Gulf. Whatever it is, and there may be a low spot in a valley related to the golf course. Everything goes towards Riviera, for example, is 10 miles from the ocean, but everything flows down in that direction. So the clubhouse is on a hill, and the sixth hole is the lowest place on the golf course. Everything flows on the line between the clubhouse and the sixth hole. So you get the hugest big perspective. That's where everything wants to go. Then you bring it in and say, is there anything near the green? A creek, a hillside. Look at what the lay of the land is around the green. Then look closer around the green. For example, is your ball near a bunker? Well, golf course designers set it up so that water doesn't flow through their bunker. Otherwise, they get all these ravines and it washes the sand out. So all the bunkers around the edge of the green are raised a little bit. Not only that, what happens when people hit a ball out of the bunker? They don't just hit the ball, they throw sand out of the bunker. So it's like the green is being top dressed several times a day, every single day.
Right.
So it builds up along the edge of the green. So putts will tend to break away from bunkers if they're near the edge of the green. Then you look at the overall slope of the green and find the fall line through your ball. In other words, if I was going to roll a ball towards my ball, where would it start that would roll on a straight line? And then you start reading from there based on that.
So start kind of macro and then work your way in. I like that, how you kind of incorporate the green design as well.
Now, then you get to the hole. Okay, it's more important what the ball is going to do near the hole than when it starts. Because when it starts, it's going its fastest. And hopefully, when it gets near the hole, it's going its slowest.
Hopefully.
Otherwise, you're going to have a real long putt coming back. Okay, so what I like to do is stand behind the hole, looking straddling the line straight at the ball, and feeling if I'm tilted one way or the other. And then I will slide over on the low side until I feel like I'm not tilted at all, and that's the line that the ball wants to take to fall straight into the hole. Now I've identified the effective center of the hole, which is not the middle of the hole, but one side. And so I see the putt coming in from that side, and I say, okay, to come in that spot, it's got to come from here, and I track back a line back to the ball and see what that starting line is. And it's almost always a lot more than people reading from the ball towards the hole.
Isn't it
so
funny?
That's how I read from the hole backwards.
It's just funny how, I mean, obviously you've coached some of the, best players in the world, and the whole pro versus amateur side is shocking. Like how much amateurs would be better if they just added a little bit more break. Because if you're just constantly under reading, it has almost no chance to go in. But if you're giving it a little bit more and you do miss on the pro side and you have the right speed, you're going to open up that hole a lot more.
Yeah, balls don't tend to fall up into the hole. They tend to fall down. Bobby Jones, 100 some years ago, said, and if you roll the same putt and one misses on the high side and one misses on the low side, the high side putt will roll much less distance than the low side putt. So do you want to have a 1-footer coming back or a 4-footer coming back? I'll take the 1-footer. Okay, now one of the drills that I teach people to do is find a breaking putt, one that between the ball and the hole is pretty level. It's going to go up the side of a hill and then come down again. That's the break, right? But lay your phone across the middle of the hole with the edge of the phone that's on the middle of the hole pointing straight at the ball. So you've covered the low half of the hole. And as soon as you go behind the ball and look, you're going to see more break because you need more break to go in that high side of the hole. So use that as a drill to go in the high side and track as you play the round how many of your putts miss on the high side, how many miss on the low side. I had a playing lesson with a guy, and on the first green, he hit his putt. I said, low side, in a slightly irritating way. And on the second hole, he hit his putt, and I said, low side, in a similarly, maybe even a little more irritating way. The third hole, low side, and he said, okay, I get it.
But do you?
Do you know how many putts he started holing after that? Because he said, I don't want to hear that. And you can say it to yourself. Now, you don't have to hear me saying it. You say it to yourself, low side. You go, I don't want to say that. I don't want to hear myself saying that. And you will start to subconsciously even play a little more break. He holed at least 4 putts coming in, and that usually he would miss on the low side.
Mm-hmm.
That's important when you're reading the greens. The other thing is to understand the shape. I was watching the President's Cup, and they had a little graphic, and they would have the ball rolling straight and then turning and going towards the hole. Now, they did a pretty good job when it was a severe break near the end of the putt. They would start it a little later, but you need to, I call it rivers and fountains. You need to understand, uphill putts are like a fountain. When the energy is shooting the water straight up, it goes straight for a long time. But when it slows down, it curves really fast to go back down to earth. That's what uphill putts do. How many times have we hit a putt and just as it's about to get to the hole, it curves off right in front of it? Really frustrating. That's that shape. You have to play it. You either have to play it and be willing to take a 2-footer coming back to take some of the break out, or you have to aim to the side and see that it's going to make almost a right angle turn, either to the left or the right, once it starts to slow down. Because the ball wants to do the same thing as the water. It wants to turn around and go back downhill. Now, a downhill putt is different. A downhill putt is more like a river, which curves until it finds a straight path down to the ocean. So the ball is going to curve almost immediately from the start, and you're not going to hit it as hard because it's downhill. So gravity is going to affect it more earlier, and it's going to curve until it finds that fall line that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Once it finds the fall line, it just stops curving and goes straight to the hole. You'll see even the pros, they play the break and the ball doesn't keep breaking, and they move their hand and say, like in a curve, and say, why didn't it keep breaking? What? Because it found the fall line. And wherever that fall line is, goes straight. So you need to see that as a curving putt that turns into a straight putt. Uphill putts are straight putts that turn into a curving putt.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying the interview, and just a reminder that if you do want to improve your putting fast, make sure to download my free putting routine checklist. This is a simple PDF you can download. All you have to do is enter your email. I'll send it over, and that way you can go through step by step to make sure you have a consistent putting routine so you can putt like a pro. That is wicked smart approved right there. I like that. I've never would have thought of. Now I'm going to think about that when I have uphill putts, because I like downhill putts more. I feel like they're easier. You don't have to do as much. You just get it on the line and let the speed do it. It's like those uphill ones. We get a lot of slow greens in Arizona when the weather gets warm. They got to overwater the greens just so they don't die. And we get a lot of slow ones and a lot of uphill ones sometimes. And I feel like you're right, though. You miss them right in front of the hole and they just go right by it. And you're like, oh, man. So, yeah, I like that kind of different approach. And one thing from your book that really helped me was path and pace. just getting like super clear about that, because I think that for me, and I think probably a lot of people can relate to this, is that you're not as 100%. You might even be convinced on the read. You might feel good about it, but you're not really sure. Is this dying in? Is this kind of flowing in? Is this going in the back of it? Like having that path and pace. I kind of remind myself that the 2 Ps from Dr. Parent here. I always think about that when I'm reading greens. Is like how important is like figuring out, hey, I'm going to hit this one, uphill into the back, or hey, this one's downhill. I'm going to just kind of diet in the front. Like, what does that do, I guess, for your mind to give it that kind of clarity?
Well, I think that it's important because you're seeing the whole path and pace of the putt. And it's good to be able to see that and how you expect it to go in. Obviously, if you're going to diet in the front, the break and the grain and whatever is going to affect it more. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to have it go firmly into the back, then it's going to affect it less. But you're shrinking the size of the hole. The slower it's going in, the bigger the hole is, because if it catches even the edge, it's going to fall in. The faster putts, it's going to lip out. And that's why, people, I want to bring this up. People say, I hit it 4 feet by because I wanted to give it a chance. You were not giving it a chance, because when you hit it at a pace 4 feet by, you've reduced the hole to the size of a quarter. You know those holes that they have on practice screens sometimes that are just big enough for the ball to fit in? That's what you've turned the hole into. Mm-hmm. And so you're really not giving it a chance when you hit it at that pace. The ideal pace, if the hole were covered up, it would roll 1 foot to 2 feet by. There's not that much difference between a foot, foot and a half, 2 feet. It's almost the same. So it's up to you what you're most comfortable with, whether you want to see it going in a little more firmly or a little softer. That's up to you. But ideally, unless it's a screaming fast downhill putt, or what you would say a wicked fast downhill putt, it's which you want to see just trickling over the edge, because you'd rather leave it short by 2 inches than have it go 5 feet by. Other than that, you want to see all your putts going in at roughly the same speed, so that you don't change your stroke from putt to putt. I think that gets people in trouble. I've seen people say, why did you pull that one? Well, I wanted to take the break out of it. Yeah, but that threw your sequencing off because you're not used to stroking a putt that hard, right? Or you make that stroke and then you think, boy, if I hit it this hard, I'm going to pull it, and then you hold it artificially open, so it could go anywhere. Instead, just see the path and the pace and the ball going in at the pace you like. Pouring in, either gently pouring in or firmly pouring in. Okay?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I feel like we avoided some mental mistakes. We got the green reading side down. Now it's into the putting routine, because you can have the best mental game, you can have a great green reading routine, but if you have no routine for your mind, it can really, lead to a lot of doubt and a lot of fear. So what does make a good putting routine? Because I know in both your books, or a lot of your books, I know you have a lot out there, but the ones that I've read a lot, Zen Golf and Zen Putting, you obviously talk about routines a lot. So what makes a good putting routine?
Well, let's go one step before that, and that's pace. Okay, so how do you get better at judging pace? I have a couple of different drills in Zen Golf and Zen Putting, and one that I like, because one thing that's a challenge in pace is you've putted uphill on the last hole and now you have a downhill putt, or you've just putted downhill. This is more common. You've just putted a downhill putt, the next one's uphill. It is so hard to hit that one hard enough. So I like a drill that I learned from one of the college coaches at the camp that I taught at in Ireland. And you take a ball, you find a pretty good slope between 2 holes on the practice green, and you roll one up, you walk up there, roll it back down to the lower hole. Putt to the upper hole, putt back down to the lower hole. And you start to feel the difference. Now, you don't want to feel like you're hitting it harder or hitting it softer. You want the same rhythm stroke, just bigger or smaller. And then the other thing is to put ball marks on the green at 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet. 30 is fine. And putt to those, get a bunch of balls and putt to those ball marks randomly. So you feel the difference between there's a 5-footer, there's a 20-footer, now there's a 10, now there's a 30, now there's 2 5s, now there's a 20 and a 15. And do it randomly. And then you'll start to feel the difference and you'll start to be able to gauge your speed better. Okay? So that I wanted to encourage those drills. Now,
and I want to say that I love that because I actually, the first time I read Zen Putting, that was the first thing I went out and did was just putt to tees because you're not worried about holding them. You're just worried, or not even worried. You're just trying to get the speed focus and you're doing some downhill and some uphill.
Yep. And you separate out. So you start by putting to nowhere and put a line on the ball, even if you don't usually use it. See if you can make it roll clear and sharp. If you can, it's going to roll where the putter's pointing. So you don't push, don't pull, hit it where the putter's pointing. So that's your stroke. Then the read we talked about, and then that's the line, and then the pace or the path, and then the pace. Once you've got those down, now you go through your routine. So if you take a practice stroke, some people like to do it behind the ball looking down the line, but then you better trust that line that you're seeing from behind. Some people like to do it to the side. Again, I talked about a practice stroke that is the same as your actual stroke, which is back, through, hold the finish. Don't just swoosh it back, start again in the middle. Back, through, hold the finish. Now, when you set up, the first thing you do, you're going to set the putter. And when you set the putter on the line, at the aim that you want, you're done with that. So the first thing you say is, done with direction. I'm committed. I'm going to hit it where the putter's pointing. I'm going to start every putt like a straight putt. Then you get a feel for the pace, and you look, and you get a sense of it. And you say, well, first you say, after you've done your practice swings, or if you already know what you have confidence in your stroke, you say, I got the stroke. Then you say, I got the line. Now the last thing you do is look for about 3 seconds to see the whole putt and say, I got the pace. When you look back down, bring that image to mind, that image of the whole putt. And if you want to take a breath there, take a breath, let it all the way out, and then roll it into the picture. Some people like to take their breath before they walk into a dress. Some people like to take it as they're taking their address. Some people like to take it just before, as kind of a way to take the putter back. Breathe out, take it back, and away you go. So that's a suggested possibilities for your routine.
Do you feel like, obviously the same routine for all putts is key? I feel like too many guys are, doing it for this one and then not doing it for that one. The one part that always kind of challenges me though a little bit sometimes, I know I'm not alone, is when you do miss a putt and you still got to hit the next one. I know you're a big fan of post-shot routines, and in the full swing, we don't have as much time, to put the club back in the bag or whatever your post-shot ritual is. So what would you say to people to quickly kind of forget about that putt and then prepare for that next one?
Okay, so the first thing is the distinction. Did I make the putt, but the ball missed the hole? Mm-hmm. Or did I hit the putt? Okay. If you hit the putt, you can't learn anything from it because you don't know if that's what caused it to do what it did, or if the break and the speed and the slope were what caused it to do what it did. So the first thing you do there is you go, don't leave that spot. Just make another stroke and hold the finish. And
so a replacement stroke.
Replacement stroke. You go, okay. And take a breath because you're not happy. Take a breath, calm yourself down, and then make the replacement stroke. You go, there, that's my stroke. Then walk in and read the comebacker, okay, or the next putt that didn't reach the hole, okay. If you love the way it left, because that's the key. If you don't take anything from this podcast, for putting and for every shot, your goal is not about how it comes out. It's loving the way it leaves the club face. If you love the way it leaves the club face, chances are it's going to be pretty good. And if not, you can learn something from it. So if you love the way it left the putter, then that you like the speed, you like the line, you like the stroke, you made your putt. Then you go, why didn't it do what I thought it did? So take a moment and be an objective detective and look around and say, what didn't I see that was there? Or what did I think I saw that wasn't there? And you get better at green reading that way. And don't get too frustrated as the ball rolls by the hole. Watch what it does as the ball rolls by the hole. Remember the fall line, and especially if you're hitting an uphill comebacker, it's going to be a lot straighter than the downhill putt. Because it was trying to find the fall line as it went by the hole.
Gosh, yeah, that's like 3 really good points there. Because I feel like when most guys just get so frustrated, they don't watch that fall line. They're usually saying something negative to themselves or their game. Then they rush up to the next one, maybe don't even read or go through the routine, and then you might miss another one. It's a brutal game. And I like that.
And remember, if you had a downhill putt, that's why I gave you that drill. If you had a downhill putt, it's really hard to hit the next one hard enough, the comebacker hard. If you went by the hole, your next one's an uphill putt. And It's hard to hit that one because you think, well, if I hit it too hard, now I'm going to have a 3-foot downhiller again, and I don't want a 5 putt. It's hard to do that. You have to really take a fresh start.
Yeah, those are great.
And putt it as an uphill putt.
Those are great strategies that I know everyone can really benefit from. Is just remembering to actually do it when you do miss the putt. What would you say for guys?
Your notes with you.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're allowed to look at them as you walk to the green.
That's fair. I like that. You mentioned the 5 putt. I didn't have a 5 putt this year, but I did have a horrific 3 putt from about 2 feet. It had to be the yips. I've never had anything like it. So I wanted to get your take on the putting yips. I've had a few people reach out. I know it's a very common topic. The only way I can describe it is that it felt like an alien took over my body. I had this 2-footer. It was the easiest 2-footer. It was the easiest putt I've ever had. Literally. I mean, I couldn't ask for it. And then I yanked it by, and I had 3 feet coming back down, shoved or pulled that one. And it happened in like a millisecond. And I was like, what just happened? I called a coach of mine afterwards. We talked it out after maybe a little tear. I was so confused and upset. Then I was like, wow, maybe this happened so I can help my students out more and help my listeners. And I got a lot of different strategies I've applied, and knock on wood, it's been a really good year. And honestly, I think sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to figure it out. So I want to get your take on the yips for all types of players, because I mean, you see it sometimes probably with professionals, and those guys are playing for millions of dollars. So what is the yips?
I wanted to say, I watched Ernie Els at the Masters do the same thing from about the same distance. So
were you there with the 5 putt or the 6 putt that he had?
No, I just saw it.
And
I've worked with Ernie on putting a long time ago, before he got to the senior tour. So here's the thing. Remember what I said about your job of putting the ball in the hole, but you're not allowed to put the ball in the hole. And that's what makes you crazy. And that's what happens. That's exactly what happens. Because and did you notice especially in your description, you said it happened in a millisecond. It seemed like a millisecond because your mind raced that fast. You never got settled, you never got grounded. And it's a moment of panic where your system says, I'm doing an impossible task, and I don't know how. There isn't a how to put the ball in the hole from where it is to the hole, because you're not allowed to. There isn't a how. There's only a how to get it started. and you were so focused on it going in, you lost track of getting it started. And you got over there and your system said, we're not ready for this. Flinch. And it was a flinch.
It was.
Then that freaked you out, and then it flinched again. But it's only because you were freaked out about the worrying about whether it was going to go in or not. So one of the remedies that I have is to really, really shift. You know, I did this with a pro on the ladies tour. And what I did was I stood between her and the hole so that she couldn't see the hole. I didn't stand there till after she set up to the putt. And then I straddled the line so that she couldn't see the hole. Every putt went in. Because she didn't know where the hole was. All she could do was hit it where the putter was pointing. So that's the recipe. You stop thinking about the hole and you have a new job. And what I tell people to do to start with is make your practice stroke really close to the ball. Don't hit the ball, but really close to it. Take it back and notice how far you're taking it back. Take it through and to a particular spot and hold that finish. Do it a couple of times and just say, I'm going to set the putter behind the ball. It's not about the ball. It's about me taking it back that distance and through that distance to that finish. And if you're really good at that, the ball leaves and you didn't even intend to hit it.
Interesting. So you're saying do those right next to it as part of your routine, or are you saying to do that
part of your routine? Part of your routine. You're taking their rehearsal strokes. You don't even think of it as practice.
Right.
You're rehearsing what you're going to do, and then you do it. And it doesn't have to do with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to be that the putter's set up behind the ball on that third one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny. I definitely was into results thinking. It was the 16th hole of a one-day qualifier. I knew I was right there, and all of a sudden my mind totally went there, and I was like, "Oh, I'm right there." And yep, 100%. So when people,
lucky guess.
Yep, 100%. And I mean, again, I definitely have put myself in the arena enough. You'd think you'd figure it out, but I see it happen on the pro tour, so I don't beat myself up too much. But I'm curious, when you do have a thought like that, like, oh, I want to make this. Oh, I could qualify. I can make the.
You mean I want to hold this? You see, you have to train yourself.
Yeah, but I'm saying, Michael, though, if you get into
that's your job.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's your job.
Yeah.
You need to change your language.
Mm-hmm.
Train it so that you don't say make for the ball going in the hole.
I love it. I love it.
Deal? Is it a deal?
It is a deal. 100%. If I do it, I'm gonna like tally it up every month if I do it and donate it to a charity you want. Trust me. Not that that's a bad cause, but I will. It's definitely, you're going to be the fountains and rivers is going to be there, and also the made versus hold.
Good.
So if you do think during the round, especially in tournaments, I got a lot of guys getting into club championships, amateur events, and they want to hole a putt in the middle, or they get worried about results. What do you recommend they do to just kind of reset?
Not my job. Say, not my job. Say, wait a minute. Not my job. Catch it as best you can. If you may not, but recognize what got in the way there. It was trying to hold it rather than just doing what I could to like the way it left, to get it started. Okay, and you have to say, not my job. And if you need to, write something and tape it to your putter cover. It says, remember your job.
I like that. I think that'd be a good ball marker.
Just get it started.
Love your line.
Love your line, love your stroke, whatever you want to say. Just get it started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've obviously, like you said, worked with Ernie and, LPGA players, a lot of professionals. Did any of them, is there one drill that you found that they did consistently during practice, or was there one mental thing that really separated them from the everyday golfers? Any kind of commonalities you found with the pros?
I got to tell you, it's the make versus hole. I had a pro who adopted it and really believed in it. And he called me after his first round at it was a tournament in Florida. Um, and it was his first round leading a tournament. It was the first time he shot 63 on a golf course on the PGA Tour. And he called me up and he said, Doc, I made 16 out of 18 of my first putts, and I holed 9 of them.
I like that.
So your confidence is based on your ability to execute. Half of your putts outside of 8 feet aren't going to go in. More than from 8 at 8 feet.
Yeah.
As you extend it out, way smaller percentage. So most of your putts from outside of 8 feet aren't going to go in. So do you want your confidence based on whether you hole them or not? Or you want your confidence based on whether you make them or not? And making them means you like the way you got them started.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on that and let that be your confidence builder and say, man, I'm putting great. They're just not going in. Maybe I'm not reading. Maybe I need to read a little more break-in, or if I'm missing them low. Or maybe I'm overcompensating and reading too much. I'm going to adjust, but I'm not going to change my stroke or my routine because I'm making every putt. Doesn't that sound good?
It does. It's a lot better of a feeling than beating yourself up if they don't go in.
Then why am I missing so many putts? That's not a helpful thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make you twitch.
We don't want the twitch. I wouldn't wish that. I actually don't think I'd wish that upon anybody. That wasn't fun. We got the off season coming up, and I know a lot of players won't be able to go out and tee it up, but they have indoor putting greens and there's different things. Any other mental training you'd recommend guys do for putting in the off season?
It basically work with your breathing, work with your mindfulness, and know is where am I focused? Am I focused on execution or am I focused on outcome? Just know where your mind is. Am I focused on if I hold this one, then I got an easy hole coming up, and then I can, and now you're way ahead of yourself. Or, I left that last one short. I don't want to leave this one short. Well, you probably hit it about 6 feet by and do a real good job of not leaving it short. So if you're in the past or the future, it's not going to help you. So know where your mind is. Your body is always in the present, unless you don't have a time machine in your backyard, do you?
You asked me in January. I've been working on it, but haven't got it yet.
If you don't, your body's always in the present. Your mind is a time machine. If you're not careful, it's often past or the future. So reel it back in, practice being in the present and saying, did I execute? And start building confidence in your ability to get the putt started the way you like. That's what you can do in the off season.
Yeah. Fantastic. Before getting into the last question, wanted to know what you've been working on or what's coming out new. I know you've already had, bestsellers, millions of copies sold. Anything new we should be looking out for Zen Golf?
Well, this is my latest and kind of my baby that I wrote with my sister. And it's called A Walk in the Wood. Not a walk in the woods, but a walk in the wood. Meditations on mindfulness with a bear named Pooh. And the Disney company asked my sister and I to write a book using stories that we made up from Winnie the Pooh, about Winnie the Pooh and his friends, to teach mindfulness and kindness and family values to families. So it's got these great stories, it's got great illustrations, it's got a poem in each chapter, and it's 16 chapters in a day in the life of Winnie the Pooh. And after each one, there's adult language, instructions on mindfulness, awareness, kindness, gratitude, confidence, appreciating nature, all those kinds of things that parents can read with their children and teach them at an age level appropriate. So it's for all ages, and I just love the little book. By the way, I don't want to necessarily plug one website, but there is a website that's selling it for nearly half price for the hardcover. So get it while you can. But I'm really proud of that little book.
That's incredible. I think that's something that a lot a lot of families, a lot of kids could benefit from. That's amazing that, Disney reached out to you too. That's making it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. For the last question, I know you're probably not going to like this word choice, but I'm curious if you feel like you're in a slump, or statistically, if you look at your stats, putting isn't is the worst of the four. What would you recommend people start with? What's the first step to hopefully getting out of that?
Oh, I don't mind the word slump because it shows that you're in a pattern that's less successful than you have been in the past, or that you feel like you could be based on the work that you've put in. So the first thing to do is say, this isn't permanent, and take a look at what's going on. The very first thing is, am I patient and trusting my stroke, or am I changing everything as I go? Because if you're chasing it, and you're impatient, you're hitting good putts, they don't go in, and then you start messing with things, and then none of them go in. Whereas if you were patient, maybe you hit good putts on the front nine, they don't go in, but you hit the same putts on the back nine, and they go in. It doesn't happen evenly. So you got to understand it goes that way. It moves in waves. You get waves of putts falling and waves of putts not falling. Be patient. If you feel like you're making the putt, stay with your routine and your stroke and your technique, and just keep rolling it. Learn from it. And so the next thing is, if you're making them, are you missing them predominantly on the low side, particularly? Work with that. Work on your reads and on improving that. Work on your pace. So all of those things until you feel like you can make the putt. And all of them, when they leave, you go, if I read that right, it's got a real good chance. And that feels good. And chances are more of them are going to fall. So that the way to get out of the slump is to look at those two things. Am I making the putts, or am I messing with my technique as I go and chasing? And if I am making a lot of putts, but I'm missing them on one side or the other, I need to improve my green reading and work on that.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I know that golfers are going to get a lot from this. Like we talked about, putting is a big part of the game and a low-hanging fruit for so many players. So hopefully they'll take some notes and maybe have something on their putter cover to remember their job, and focus on the right mindset, and watch some putts drop.
I have a really good time long distance coaching with putting, because players can bring their phone or their iPad or their tablet, whatever it is, out to the putting green, and they set up, and it's like I'm there and I'm watching them putt. So you can put my website up there.
Yeah.
People are welcome to get in touch with me, and we'll do a long distance putting lesson. Happy to.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you do playing lessons if people are in person too, correct?
Yeah, that's at the Ojai Valley Inn in Southern California. Please come out. And once in a while, I do a long distance playing lesson where I have a student take their phone or their tablet out. They have, and they set their bag or their cart, park their cart. They lean it up against the wheel. First, I have them hold it up behind so I see what the shot is. Then I lean it against the wheel and I see him swing. So we have some fun. It's pretty fun.
That's amazing. Yeah, playing lessons are great. I wish more people did those, because that's how you can learn a ton, both on the mental side and just the course management side of things. So thank you so much again for being back, for sharing so much, for doing so much for the game. Literally millions of people have read and listened to your work, and no doubt helped them on and off the course. So thank you again, Doctor.
Thanks, Michael. We'll do it again sometime. All right.